Hi everyone, happy Juneteenth. I'm very excited to be here and happy to see that so many people have tuned in. Thank you for sharing this digital space with me today. Before I get started on my talk today, I would like to go ahead and briefly introduce myself to everyone. My name is Valerie and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the founder and CEO of Tech by Choice. And we are a nonprofit on a mission to increase the diversity in STEM by making sure all underrepresented adults know that they can enter, stay, and thrive in any industry. Because if we're going to be honest with ourselves, we know that underrepresented groups have been able to thrive in any space that they've been in. We're just working a little bit harder over at TBC to make sure that everyone knows that they can use tech to empower themselves. Outside of my community work, I am also a senior software engineer at Mastery Logistics. I never would have thought in 1,000 years that the logistics industry would be the one industry that really captivates me. But looking at the company I work for, the problems we're solving, the people I get to work with, it makes a lot of sense. This has to be one of the best companies I've ever worked at. And I just want to let everyone know that we're currently hiring. So if you are interested in learning more about mastery, or you want to continue the conversation about imposter syndrome, or you want to learn more about Tech by Choice, we're currently looking for companies to partner with, mentors for our members, and, well, of course, more members. Connect with me on Twitter. My handle is digitalblkhippie, and I'm on there talking about tech, code, art, anything and everything that crosses my mind as well. But before I go any further, I want to take a moment to thank the Juneteenth team who worked really hard to put this conference together over the last 2 weeks. It took a lot of time and effort and commitment to get this up and running at this scale. And I'm very proud and excited to be a part of this community and a part of this event, the first one at that, to talk about something that I think is very prevalent, especially in today's time. And that's imposter syndrome. But it's not the normal take you hear on imposter syndrome. Instead, I think you should be empowered by imposter syndrome versus seeing it as something that's a negative. If you do a quick Google search on imposter syndrome, you'll see a number of talks and articles and podcasts and videos and a whole bunch of things all around this topic. And it's making it seem like this is just another industry buzzword. But I mean, you gotta take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. I am giving a talk about imposter syndrome. But I don't want to throw this off as just a buzzword. Because if we look at our current world, it makes a lot of sense that a lot of people are feeling like imposters. 2020 has brought on a lot of uncertainties and unknowns for all of us. These feelings have amplified the voices in our heads that tell us maybe we're not good enough, maybe we don't belong at that job, maybe we made the wrong turn to try to accomplish some of these things. This is especially true for those of us who have been recently laid off and who are still looking for work. If the tech industry is known for one thing, it's the fact that we do a horrible job at interviewing and hiring. I don't know not one person who has been on the job hunt in tech and didn't feel like an imposter at some point. Even for those of us who are fortunate enough to still have a job, we're experiencing burnout. We're constantly on Zoom for meetings, for work, and then we jump on them to hang out with friends and family to have some type of social life. Our screen time is increasing and we're starting to lose focus. I've had countless conversations with people over the last few weeks about how they aren't able to focus during their normal work day, and so they're spending extra time after work to make up for the lost time throughout the day. Then there's a number of people who are just so nervous about being laid off that they're overworking just to try to prove the point that they're thankful to still have a job and a roof over their head and food on the table. Now, I know this is a normal reaction to a very not normal world that we're currently living in. But the one thing that makes this even harder is our current discussion around imposter syndrome seems to be very negative. If we look at the way that most of these articles and thought pieces are broken down, it's really into 3 parts. The first part being they let everyone know that imposter syndrome is real. They may describe symptoms and what it looks like. They may even go into giving a description that loosely ends up being someone who is working out of fear of being outed as a fraud at any given moment. And this is despite the fact that this person tends to have a long list of accomplishments, achievements, skill set to accomplish their day-to-day tasks. None of this is helping them feel as if they are good enough. From there, the discussion moves on towards the second phase of things. It lets people know that others have imposter syndrome too. Now, this part of the conversation is really interesting because it seems that the industry is becoming more and more aware of how these systems and environments that we work in are supported by isms. And that's racism, sexism, classism, ableism, all of the negative things that make us feel like we're othered, that we're outsiders, that we don't belong, or we must assimilate. We are now aware that that is fueling a lot of people to feel like imposters. And so this is why you get stats about more women, more minorities, more people with identities that intersect are more likely to have or experience imposter syndrome. But even with that big finding, and in these articles, it's usually ended with, that's it. We know that it's a real thing. We know that other people have it, but it's just something that you have to live with, is the way that these discussions are going. And for me, I'm very data driven. I'm very research driven. I'm an earth sign. I'm a Taurus. So this isn't working for me. I need solutions. And I think this is where my biggest pet peeve started with this whole discussion, is I don't want to just vibe with a lot of people who have imposter syndrome and not find a way to have a solution. While it's very important to validate your feelings and to make sure you're not alone, I would rather help people versus the togetherness feeling. And this brings me to one of the quotes that I learned at a very young age from Maya Angelou. And it states, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. And this is really the outlook I took on imposter syndrome. After a few years of mentoring in the Tech by Choice community and other local communities over the years, I started to realize that there were certain patterns I saw about imposter syndrome. One of those patterns being, it usually first started in the workplace. Anytime anyone said that they first experienced imposter syndrome, it was some interaction that they had at work. But I knew saying that it started at work was not enough. I knew that I had to go through these different steps to realize why it was happening and to try to find a few solutions. So I like to run this talk as a workshop with people so that we can talk through and work through these different steps. So feel free to go ahead and pause this and play it as you like and work through these examples on your own. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and use examples that I've used in the past. So to get started with understanding why the workplace makes you feel like an imposter, you have to be aware of your external factors. And this is usually the workplace, the people around you, and things like that. And you need to understand what external factors cause what internal feelings. So these are all of the things that you're saying to yourself when you feel like you're an imposter. Just being able to understand what those are and how they work will help you understand how to create a solution. So an example that I noticed a lot in the community is that when people would get a task that they felt was too hard or was something new, they started to feel like they couldn't do it. They started to feel like they weren't good enough. They would freeze, feel frozen and stuck, and they would feel like their role was not the role that they were supposed to be in. They would also sometimes get stuck in this tutorial rabbit hole where they would be constantly learning but taking no action. And after hearing countless stories of this, I realized what people were experiencing was a lack of structure. This lack of structure caused people to kind of just spiral when it came to getting something done and understanding how to move forward. As an ex-psychology student, I know one thing I learned about people is that they love structure and they love patterns. And so I quickly realized being able to add structure, whether it's internal structure or external, was one of the quick and easy ways to solve the imposter syndrome feeling. So once I got to that conclusion, I realized to find structure, it's going to be different for each situation. So we really have to sit there and think about what caused you to feel like an imposter and what structures were lacking. If we use the same example from before, we can quickly say that the imposter syndrome feeling we had from the overwhelming task could be due to mostly external things. So we could say that we needed more support from other people. For example, maybe if we had more details about what the problem actually was, we could find a solution quicker. Another thing that could be happening is maybe you need to work with other departments and other people, but you don't have that connection and you don't really understand who to work with and what to tell them. This could be detailed out in the ticket or in the details or the problem that you're given. But if we're going to be completely honest with ourselves and to make this really work for you, you do have to understand that sometimes the external issues that you're facing is because sometimes we get afraid to speak up. And I found that the best way to influence your external environment is to just go ahead and work on finding phrases that you can use to ask for help that still give you power. As a Black woman in tech, I know how intimidating it can be to ask for help. You want to make sure that your peers see you as someone who is knowledgeable, that knows what's going on. So you may be reluctant to ask for help if you feel that it's going to reduce some of your power. So this solution is something that you have more control over. But if we think back to that Maya Angelou quote, instead of, if you can't change something, you have to change your thought process around it. And this is what this part of the framework is doing. So for me, when I don't feel that comfortable asking for help, I try to change the way I think about help and tell myself that I am currently blocked with completing a task that'll help me finish something. In order to get unblocked, I need to have this person give me information. So this way, it's putting me in a position where I'm controlling the direction of the information flow, and I'm controlling the solution that we end up getting to. Even though I'm involving other people, in my head, I'm changing the way I see I ask for help, and I'm giving myself the power that I thought I lost. So we've been talking a lot about structure and power and how we can add this to our day-to-day lives so that we don't feel like imposters. But why is structure so important? If I go back to my psychology roots, I tend to look at developmental psychology for why we need structure. When babies are born, there is a test that they're given. They check for their gag reflexes, they check for the respiratory things. There's a number of checks that a newborn goes through to make sure that they're hitting their milestones. And this continues throughout school and the rest of our developmental cycles. In school, we're given roadmaps as to what grade we should be in when we learn cursive, or what grade we are in when we learn multiplication. And we're also given benchmarks and tests along the way to make sure that we're staying on task and we are on progress and making the right improvements and hitting those milestones. But once you enter the real world, all of those things are gone. And it's usually around this time that we have to depend on ourselves for clothing, for food, and a roof over our heads. And for some of us, we have other loved ones that we have to care for as well. So once we enter in this adulthood, we lose all of these systems and we gain all of this pressure to perform, but we don't have any of the support we used to have. So this is why we start seeing ourselves compare what we're able to do and accomplish to something other people are doing and accomplishing. But we never did this before now. If you think about it, when we were in school, we didn't ever expect a second grader to know something that a 11th or 12th grader would know. We understood that people grow in cycles and they learn in cycles. But once we lose that support system, those roadmaps, those benchmarks, we don't have anything to tell us where we should be. And this is why we start to feel like we're not good enough, that maybe we don't belong in this field or this role or maybe this company. It's all because we lack that structure. So this is why the third step of this removing imposter syndrome is so important, or empowering yourself through imposter syndrome is so important. And it's because this growth plan is what we fall back on when we start to feel ourselves spiral with the negative talk and the self-doubt. We say, okay, I know I'm starting to feel like an imposter. What are some of the things I can do to help myself move on to the next step to be a better version of me? And so for this step, if we go back to the example we used before of feeling very overwhelmed with this new task, we understand the structure that we lack. So now all we have to do is give ourselves some solutions and things that we can do, so when we are feeling that high anxiety, we don't have to come up with those solutions then, we already have them done. So for me, if I was to receive a new task that felt very overwhelming to me, I would definitely ask a lot of questions to help me understand the problem better. I would ask other coworkers for help as to how to get started, but I would make sure I'm phrasing that ask for help in a way that still gives me power. And as I'm working with my coworkers and asking other people for more details about this task, I'm taking notes for all the things that I can study to improve myself, so in the future I may not have to rely on this help to solve this problem. And that's how you can create a growth plan. Now, depending on what the problem is, it can be more complicated, more detailed, or it could be just a quick one-liner. It all depends on your situation and what's currently going on. So by following these 3 golden rules, you're able to use your imposter syndrome to empower you to be better for the next time you are in a situation that doesn't feel that comfortable. You now have a framework to help you grow from those changes. And now that I've come to the end of the talk, I hope you really see that imposter syndrome is not a bad thing. Instead, it's just telling you that you have room to grow and there's more for you to learn. Being able to work in the STEM industry has been very rewarding for just that reason. There is always something new to learn and to grow in. So I hope you take this talk as a way to empower yourself through imposter syndrome. But before I end today's session, I have some exciting news to share with everyone. I would like to let everyone know that Tech by Choice is launching our Hack and Learn series. This is a series aimed at helping minority-owned local businesses move to the digital space by pairing them with local technologists to help them build out digital solutions. This will be happening through a hackathon that we will be promoting and showing off all of our amazing work through a demo day towards the end of August. Leading up to this hackathon, in the demo day, we will be offering a number of workshops and classes to help both business owners and technologists learn what they need to learn to do well during this hackathon and beyond. So please check out the link in this slide if you want to learn more about the hackathon. Go to the bit.ly TBC Hack and Learn URL to learn more about that, and make sure you join our TBC membership today with the bit.ly TBC new member link. From there, you'll be able to get access to our Slack group, get access to free events, and a lot of other resources that we have for our members. Thank you again for joining me today for the Juneteenth conference. Very excited to be able to share this content with you. If you have any questions or feedback, please go ahead and reach out to me on Twitter. Again, my handle is the digital BLK hippie. Thank you.